Today the ds-incubator is going to cover one lesson from this website here, the introduction to version control with Git. One lesson that we forgot actually to do a video when it was the time. That is the lesson undoing things, and that's a very important lesson. Git is very powerful in giving you options to undo things in many ways. Today we're going to be covering 4 ways. So the first way is how to go back to your last commit, removing everything else that you have done in your basically on the head of the repository. Then we are going to be reverting a commit, basically to create a new commit that without modifying the history, basically undoes what the previous commit did. So you do something with one commit and then you create another commit that does the revert thing. And that's a safe way to change history without actually modifying the Git commit history. Basically, you undo something in a very, very safe way. Third, we're going to be looking at how to amend a commit when you think, okay, I did a commit, but it's not quite ready. I would like to add something, remove something, change it, in some way. For example, even the commit message, and that's when you can use this approach. And third, we're going to be talking about rewinding rewinding time, basically just going back in time and moving your repository in a very hardcore way to an earlier state or a different state. Okay, so let's get started. So here I have a very simple repository. It has a file, it has this RStudio project file, which is not important, and a README file. And we are going to be talking now about how to, basically, once you're working on something and you have some changes, what can you do to go back to the state in which the repository was before? So I'm now standing on the master branch, and if I do a git status, you can see that my status is clean. There's nothing there. I could do a git checkout branch experiment. So I can check out a new branch experiment and now start doing something. Like, for example, let's see that let's say that I echo hi you, and I put that at the end of the file, a file, for example. Okay, if I do a git status, you can see that the file a file has been modified. And okay, so what can I do? And even if I added that to the staging area, say that I do git add file txt. So if I do a git status now, you can see that the file has been added to the staging area as a modification to the previous state of that file. So one way in which you can go back to the state that you had in the main branch, in this case called master, is just to check out that master branch. So let's start with just the name of the branch and see what happens. I switched to the master branch. Sometimes this could fail depending on which files you're modifying, and if those files, those changes conflict with any previous commit in the other branch that we are switching to. But in this case, it didn't fail, and we have switched to the master branch, and if I do a git status, you see the staging area still with this change there. So this didn't quite do what we wanted, right? So let's go back to where we were. Let's do a git check out, in this case experiment. So we were here, and what we ran is a checkout master. Well, if we do -f for force, right? Minus force or -f master, what we do is we switch to master, but now the status is clean. So all the changes that were in the experiment were dropped, and we are now in the state that we were before, which is what we wanted in this particular case. Let's see what's the status at git checkout experiment. So what's the status in that branch? Okay, the status of that branch is also clean. There's nothing to commit, meaning that the change that we had done before is done, is gone. right? So with that -f, it's kind of a hardcore thing to do, right? So we have to be careful that it is really what we want. We are not changing the history of the Git repository, but we are changing the working tree. So what we have in our folders and files right now is gone. So be careful with that. There is other ways to use the checkout command, as it says here. You can be more specific or more selective, and you can say, okay, when you do check out something, for example, a file, you can narrow on a specific file. So let's do again what we did before. We did an echo hi u, and we put that at the end of the file. So this is what the diff looks like. The file said hello world, and now it says hi you at the end. So we could add even more things. Let's do hey you. Let's say good morning, and now now we have these two sentences here and there. So when you add when you check out a specific file, you can use this -p flag that allows you to kind of select more specifically what's going on there. I think we need a little bit more space actually in a file. Let's open this file and say, let me add this here. I think we'll need a bit more space in this case to demonstrate the example I want to demonstrate. So let's save this file. Now the git diff, as you can see, is a little different. So now if I do git checkout and the name of the file, so I like separating the name of the file with these minus symbols. And in this case, we are being specific about the file that we want to check out. And on top of that, we're going to be specifying the -p flag. So the -p flag is going to let me select more specifically what we want to do with the changes that file particularly has recorded. So in this case, we can say, okay, it has detected a whole hunk, a bunch of changes, and it's asking me if I want to discard this hunk from the work tree. Yes, no, quit, and a few more options there. Question mark. What's question mark? Okay, let's do a question mark to find out what these options are. So quit, discard, do not discard this hunk or any of the later hunks in this file, manually edit the current hunk. Okay, so there is a bunch of options that we can do here. Let's say that we say yes, we can, we want to, actually, yes, we want to discard everything. Yeah, so with checkout, basically we go back to the status of that file as it was recorded in the Git repository, not on the working tree. So we discard the change in the working tree. So by saying yes, in this case, we go back to the last committed version of this file. So this should take the file to what it was before. Let's do a git status, and now you see that the working tree is clean, because with that, even when we were being specific about the file, I also want to be specific about or to be given more options about how to check out that file. We said yes, we wanted to undo the whole thing, and here we are with a clean working tree. So that covers this line here. And what else do we have? Okay, so this idea that we see here is that of resetting the staging area. So let's go back to modifying the file. Let's do it with Vim now. Let's do, for example, IO. So we save this file. So the diff, as you can see, shows that I have added a new line and an empty line in between as well. And the file is modified but not yet added to the staging area. So you could do git add a file, and now the git status shows that it has been added to the staging area. So one thing I could do is to reset this file. Git reset, in this case, file. So I like using this separator minus because it clearly shows that what's on the farther on the far right is a file path. So we can reset that file, and what that will do is, remember it was before here as a staged file. So now I can show you that it went from being staged one step kind of farther away from the Git repository to the modified but not staged state. And now we could do git checkout. We could even do git checkout dot, which undoes everything that you have on the working tree right now. Where the git status will now show that it's clean. So the git checkout dot is kind of dangerous. It's much better to generally be specific about which file you want to check out, because if you have changes that you haven't committed, you are going to lose them. As simple as that. So let's go now to another way of undoing things, and that is that idea of reverting commits. So let's say that we do change the file in some way. Let's say that we add good morning to the file, and then we add it to the staging area, and then we commit with the message edit file txt. So this is my commit. I can show you git one line. I can show you that at the very top we have a new commit here on experiment. So let's say that I want to undo this. So you can see that. Let's show you the less with the less command. Let's show you file, the contents of the file. As you can see, the file says hello world and then good morning. So say that we want to go back to the state where it said only hello world without good morning. Well, one way to do that would be with git revert. And notice that one thing that would be interesting to notice is that this SHA here is useful because we can revert this specific commit, or we can refer to this specific commit by the references head or the reference experiment. Any of the three things give me the same result. So I could use experiment as a proxy to say, as a reference to say this SHA, or I could say head in this case as a proxy to say this SHA as well. Or I could use, if I wanted to revert a different commit, I would refer to a different SHA or pointer. But in this case, let's say I want to revert this last one here. Okay, so what I can do is git revert. I'm going to use, in this case, head. So I'm going to revert the head of the commit. So by running that, I get into this text editor that is already pre-populated with a default message that says revert the file. So basically, what you get here is the word revert, and then between double quotes, the exact same commit message that the commit that you're reverting had in the past. So usually that's enough, and I actually do like the default there. So what I'm going to do is I just close and save and close this file. So as you can see in the log now, so we have this edit a file commit, and then on top of that we have a revert edit the file. So what do you expect to see now? Well, what you expect to see is, so if we now have a look at the file, the line that we added in the previous head is gone, because in the current head now we have a commit that does exactly the opposite, right? Undoing the effect of that particular commit. So that is revert. It's very safe. You can use it even in repositories that you have already shared with the world, because it does not change the Git history. So the commits preserve the identifiers, the SHAs that they used to have. So modifying the history is a different story. So if you already shared your repository, or you have whatever the branch, for example, that you're working with, and you're sharing it already with someone, and you're working with that, if you change the SHA, the identifiers of the commits that you shared, then the other person is going to have a really hard time trying to work with that. So once you have shared a repository, do not change its history if you want to keep your colleagues happy. It's going to be okay if you do it locally before you share, but not after you have shared. So the commands that we're going to discuss now do change the Git history, the history of the repository, and they're not recommended if you have already shared it with someone else. Right, so the first command that we're gonna use is git commit amend. What does it do? Well, it lets you amend, basically you pop up the a particular commit and you change it. You can add new things, you can edit the commit message or whatever. So say that we want to do that. So if I do git commit amend, the default is gonna be to get the last commit, right? So here I get again in the interface that you saw before. So say that we can, what we can do now is, for example, edit this commit message, revert the commit with message black, right? So if I show you now the git log one line, you can see that now the commit before has changed the message that it contains, because I changed it with git commit amend. And also, although I didn't show you that before, this SHA is different to the one that was before. So it's E74 blah blah blah. Okay, let's see what happens if I amend it again. Revert commit with message blah. So let's do that, and let's show you the log again. As you can see, this number is no longer the same. So this confirms that the commit identifier has changed. That means that the history of the Git repository that we're working with has changed, and that also means that I can only do that safely if I haven't yet shared this this commit. No one else has this commit yet. So that's fine to do locally, encouraged actually, because it allows you to, editing the Git history locally before you share it allows you to make it clean, make it understandable, so that others can more easily get what you did and why. There is one last, So one last thing I wanted to show today, which is this idea of rewinding the history to a previous state. So let's see the log. So let's say that I want to go back to this particular state, and I don't care anymore about here. So what I would like to do is this branch experiment to kind of go back here to this commit. So I can take the SHA here and say git reset, and we're going to add the flag hard, because that is what we want. We want to completely go there and forget about everything else that happens after that. So here I'm going to just paste the SHA of the commit to which I want to reset. So I run that. I can read now a message that confirms that the head has now moved to this SHA that I pointed to, and the git log shows effectively that this is where I'm standing right now. Even if you do this and then you change your mind, there is a way to recover to the previous state with something that is called a ref log, which if you just like git ref log, this is what it looks like. It's not the most fun place to be when you're working with Git repos, so you usually just want to avoid it. But this long story made it short is that as long as you commit things, it's very possible to undo what you did. So do commit often. It's always you have the opportunity to clean up your Git history before you share it. But if you do not commit and then you make a mistake, then you're stuck, because it's impossible to recover stuff that you haven't committed. So that's it for today. We've seen, as a summary, let's go back to the top. Actually, not here. Let's go back to the top to reflect on what we did. We learned a few ways of undoing things with Git. One that gets rid of, changes around our working tree, and we haven't committed yet. That's, what's there is gone, and it's gone forever, because that's stuff we haven't committed. So you have to be careful with that. We used the git checkout command for it. Then we saw another way of undoing things that actually were committed. So when you commit something and then you want to undo it, one way that you can do that is with git revert. Basically, you create a new commit that does the opposite effect of the commit that you want to revert. And that's safe to share with people. Basically, once you share your repository, there are things you can do and things you can't do without at least causing a lot of trouble. And git revert is one of those commands that are great because they allow you to change what your working tree looks like by undoing things from the past, but in a way that does not change the git history of the history of the repository. Third, we saw this command called commit amend or flag to commit. That's called amend. That allows you to amend basically a commit that you have already done, and that does change the history of the repository, and therefore you couldn't do it after you have shared your repo. You could do it to clean up your repo locally before you share it. And finally, we saw this command git reset hard that allows you to go back to any commit and completely forget about the rest basically to reset your repository to a specific state. That's all for now. That covers a lesson that we had skipped, so I'm glad that we have now that in recording. Ciao, ciao.